welcome to another Coffee and Contemplation brought to you by Spotlight Recovery. It is April 23rd. We've got a neat little reflection today. We're going to see what we can get out of it. I just enjoy it. Here we go. All right. Did the language in it. Let's do this. The reality of progress. Learn what you are and be such. Pindar. It's difficult for some of us to take a compliment. When others respond favorably to us, we may wonder if they know who we really are. We may believe that if they knew the whole truth, they would think less highly of us. We are not imposters. We're complex people who are continuing to evolve. We may be competent, sober, generous, and successful, and at the same time still have uncertainties and self-centered fears. We can give ourselves permission to be wherever we are in our process of development or recovery. This means acknowledging not only our shortcomings, but also our successes. We can value what we've worked to accomplish and become willing to accept others' praise and congratulations without feeling fraudulent. Our progress is real. We can let it empower and nurture us. Today, my image of myself is positive. I can accept the reality of my progress. This inspiration is from Glad Day, Daily Meditations for Gay, Lesbian, Bisexual, and Transgender People. Yeah, so I totally froze there at the beginning. That's so funny. So how do I explain this? Like I said, I love the wording in it. I love the messaging in this reflection, and I think it covers a really important point for us that we face at some point sooner or later in our recovery. And so that is realizing now that we're just realizing that we are changing, developing, we're becoming this better, healthier, more honest person in our recovery as opposed to the version of ourselves and who we were in our addiction. You know, a lot of us, we'll get stuck in this at some point or another, just because in addiction, we have so many of these common traits of living in our character defects and dishonesty, putting on the social masks to show you the version of me that I want you to see, telling you whole certain parts of the truth and leaving these other parts out and playing all these games. You know, that's really common for a lot of us. And so I really like the last line in this first paragraph here. We may believe that if they knew the whole truth, they would think less highly of us. So when we were in our addiction, that's probably true. That was probably a lot more true in the past, based on who we were and how we were behaving and what was going on. But after some time in recovery, when you have grown and changed and developed all these points that it talks about in the second paragraph, we may be competent, sober, generous, and successful. So now having undergone all of these changes and made all of this progress, it's funny how just we'll have that part of ourselves that still thinks, oh, but if they knew the whole truth, they wouldn't like me as much. They wouldn't look at me the same way or whatever it may be. And so it's really funny how at some point in our recovery, we're going to feel this imposter syndrome. This thing is going to hit, and it makes sense because we're the ones like doing the work. We're doing all this work on our recovery. We're in the middle of it all, feeling, having all of these emotional responses, being in the thick of all the work and the journaling and step work and therapy and all of that stuff. So that's a lot, and it can be overwhelming. And we're also working at and being told and trained to stay present, be present in our recovery. So we do all of these things, and we continue to do them day by week, by month, by year, and all this time passes in recovery. It's easy for us then to not look back and see how far we've come, to not take a moment and pause and really reflect and look at all this certain growth that we've had and these changes that we've made in different areas, or really just acknowledge and realize this own progress. And we also, too, another thing that I've commonly seen is we usually, we notice it less than the people around us. We notice it, I find, more emotionally for ourselves, and we notice that emotional process a lot more. But all the other changes and attributes and everything, these more external qualities, are things that everyone else around us notices more. Just the same way that they did when they would notice that our addiction was getting worse before we did, and just point out these things that they were just noticing first, So anyway, that same thing can kind of happen on both sides. But so I just really like that they talk about this because it's a common thing, and it can absolutely be challenging, and it can throw us off guard, And so then that's where having that support system, good friends, whatever this all else may look like, sponsor, therapist, etc., to then be able to have to bounce these things off of and ask, because it can overwhelm us. It can catch us off guard. We'll think they may be lying, or like it says in the beginning, if they knew, they wouldn't feel this way. So then we're able to get some feedback from other people who are in this recovery support circle, just to help validate this positive feedback and compliments, and be like, oh wow, holy shit, okay, I am making progress, I have changed, I am getting better in these areas, so it's just a really good point that they're mentioning in here. And I like that they wrote a reflection on this whole thing, which I really appreciate. And so I'm just going to keep going here. We can give ourselves, we may be all of these positive things, and at the same time still have uncertainties and self-centered fears. Totally normal, totally okay. Everybody goes through it. We can give ourselves permission to be wherever we are in our process of development or recovery. This means acknowledging not only our shortcomings, but also our successes. We can value what we've worked to accomplish and become willing to accept others' praise and congratulations without feeling fraudulent. Our progress is real. We can let it empower and nurture us. That's another great point here that they mentioned too that I wanted to say, which is another common thing with us addicts, which is really funny. In addiction, we have this bizarre duality of how we see ourselves and our place in the world, where we think we're this piece of shit that the world revolves around. Like, it just makes absolutely no sense. And when we are ego feeding, we will take all the compliments and praise and yeah, I'm so great and I'm so good and all this stuff. But then when we're in recovery and it's time to take a real, genuine compliment and let that in to our emotional being about our true self, we just shrink. We just shiver right up, and like that now becomes impossible, or like so uncomfortable, I don't know what to do with it. And then like anything just to escape these feelings of letting these things in, especially when it's this real positive feedback, compliments, proof of progress. It's so funny. That's another very common thing we all do. So like, you're not alone if you're resonating with this. I do big time. I connect with that a lot. So I always thought that was a riot, and I'm glad that they mentioned and pointed that out too. So you kind of have these two main dualities that they're talking about in this reflection that I just really like, and I think they laid them out really well, and it's important. And then again too, this is again where the support system comes in. So then you're able to bounce this off of other folks and know that you're letting these compliments and this positive feedback feed your self-esteem, not your ego, right? Feeding your true self and not your diseased self, not your addict. It's really important, again, for that distinction, because it's kind of like this information, if we choose to let this information in, it then hits a fork in the road. And then we're like, okay, where are we going to let this go? Are we going to let this come and feed our true selves and build some confidence and love? Or are we going to let this go to our addict and feed our ego and cockiness and all of this other stuff? So that's another important piece out of it as well, just to be mindful of. But regardless, taking these moments in this time, letting people, like just letting these compliments in and this positive feedback, just letting those things in, acknowledging yourself and your growth and your progress, like all these things are just so important for us, and feel so good and are healthy. So I really can't suggest and recommend them enough, The last thing, I just remembered this now, and I'll wrap up with this, is last line in the first paragraph again. If they knew the whole truth. Well, this is another part of where living an honest program really comes into play, and being brutally honest and open and truthful in our recovery and life situations really then make this difference as well. If they knew the whole truth, well, then live in telling the truth. Get used to telling the truth and sharing these things with people, so no one's going to catch you. You're not going to be found out. You know, all these old fears we all had as well, because we lived such a dishonest, manipulative, sneaky kind of life. Now living in truth and honesty, we're sharing that with the world and being open about who we are and where we are. So then too, when we're getting compliments and positive feedback, well, they know exactly what's going on with you and what you've shared. So then you know, they know this truth. You can eliminate this question out of your thought process because you know you're being truthful about it. So it's going to help give some more validity to the information you're getting back and what they're saying. So there we go. That was the last point I just wanted to finish up on. But I think that's a great reflection. I really like those points in it. And I hope you did too. So please, in the comments, let us know what stood out for you in that reflection. How do you relate? What are things that have helped you let in compliments more? Allow yourself to be this growing person who is progressing, who still is flawed, who still is imperfect. Would love to see those shares. They could really help somebody. That would be great. So I do recovery coaching with folks. So if you like hearing what you're saying, but feel like you don't know how to let these things into your life or how to make this progress in your recovery, I'd be happy to help. Contact info is in the description, so please reach out to me and let's chat and see if there's a way I can do some work with you, okay? Everything else in that description, there's other ways that Spotlight Recovery can support you and ways that you can support Spotlight Recovery. There's a ton of info in there, so if you're enjoying this video, please go and check that out to see other ways you can get connected with us, okay? But for now, thank you for stopping by. I hope you enjoyed today's reflection. Wishing you a blessed 24 today, and see if you can let in a compliment. Let in some of those positive, feel-good vibes, man. That'd be great. And we'll see you again tomorrow.